Jujutsu Kaisen is taking the anime world by storm as I speak, and I don't think there's much I can say or show here to convince anyone who's not on board already to check it out. At least not until we get more good clips of Ultimate Aniki Aoi Todo, at which point I'm sure every social media platform will do that job for me. There's not much that needs explaining about its current or impending success, either. Much like the biggest manga of this moment, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen draws heavily on the big shonen battle series that came before it, executing on their established formulas quickly and effectively while taking them in unexpected directions at just the right moments to make big story beats hit hard. And with an exceptional director and animation staff bringing those moments to incredibly stylish life, yeah, this show's gonna do some numbers. I'm much more interested in discussing what those numbers, not to mention Demon Slayer's one manga taking up the entire Oricon chart numbers, represent. Because there is another thing these series have in common, a trait they also share with Attack on Titan, The Promised Neverland, and what's likely to be the next big shonen hit, Chainsaw Man. They're all horror stories. And while that in itself is nothing new, Devilman and JoJo were blending battle manga with body horror decades ago, the subgenre's never before seen this level of ascendancy. It's also relevant that both of those series and Parasite reached new heights of popularity with their recent remakes. Today, as someone who quite enjoys watching fictional children do murder and also be murdered by scary things, I'd like to explore why those two great tastes taste so great together, and examine what might be motivating the manga and anime fandom's sudden collective acquisition of that taste. This video is sponsored by Audible. Visit audible.com/basement or text basement to 500-500 to put a vast library of audiobooks, podcasts, and other easy listening content right in your pocket. Stick around at the end of the video for some recommendations and to learn more about Audible Plus. The first advantage of mixing horror and action is pretty obvious. There's a lot of potential for awesomeness there. It's always exciting and intense when a battle leaves a shonen protagonist bloodied and bruised, so it only stands to reason that more blood equals more hype. Just ask Hiroaka. Certainly, it helps to sell the power of the opposing forces in these battles if a few bystanders, or combatants, get sliced, diced, or blown to bits when they're unleashed, though getting gibbed can seem like a mercy next to the more creatively horrific applications of shonen superpowers. Horror elements help to sell the feeling that, when in combat, characters are riding a razor's edge between life and death, dealing with powers and threats that aren't fully under anyone's control. Think of how tense and uncertain the opening episodes of Attack on Titan feel, and how much of that tension carries through to the rest of the series. Even as our central characters raise their skills and survivability, there's always the lingering worry at the back of your mind that a single slip-up could spell their doom, with the exception of Eren and maybe Mikasa and Levi. Titans are just that fast and powerful. If they get the drop on you, if you're a little too slow evading their grasp and no one's around to help, it's over. And that's not even getting into the threat posed by Titan shifters and other humans with the same equipment and smarts as our heroes. With them in the mix, Attack on Titan is able to stage battles that can rival any anime out there for hype and tactical complexity, but with such threatening basic monsters in play, the series' baseline hype ends up being a lot higher than your average shonen. No matter how many times you see it happen, when a regular human takes down a Titan, it's an accomplishment. Every time someone plunges down with their blades, rockets past the nape of a giant neck in a burst of blood and steam, or brings a towering beast to its knees by bisecting its Achilles tendon, you feel the punch behind it. It's a similar feeling to bringing down a brick troll or church giant in Bloodborne, which is also basically a shonen battle anime in a horror setting if you think about it, but not that hard. Yeah, once you learn their tells and patterns and get a good feel for how they move, it's not too hard to dance around these giants' blind spots and parry their blows, but your body remembers how hard they hit, and your mind is ever aware that all it'll take is a small distraction, an error in timing, or an overcommitment to an attack to find yourself getting pounded into a fine paste on the gothic eldritch pavement once again. Now, obviously, shonen anime and manga don't have a learning curve like Souls-like games do, but they can emulate one with training arcs, and training arcs in these horror-tinged battle series tend to be pretty brutal, so as to justify the hero's success in battling even more brutal odds down the line. Titan Fighting Boot Camp does a number on Eren and his fellow trainees. They earn the skills it takes to take on the enemies of humanity, and half of them, including Eren, still get snarfed down like cheap appetizers in their first mission. Both FMA and Made in Abyss prepare their young heroes to handle forces beyond human comprehension by dropping them into the woods and saying, "Pro tip, try not to die." And after that, you don't really question it when Ed or Rico are able to fend off deadly chimeric monstrosities or break through barriers that most adults in their world never could. The Promised Neverland isn't a battle series yet, and its characters don't have any special abilities or tools, so most of the first arc is spent simply preparing them, physically and mentally, just to successfully run away from their monstrous captors. In Demon Slayer, Urokodaki damn near kills Tanjiro on a daily basis for the better part of a year before asking him to slice a boulder in half to pass. And after that, every decapitation, be it a Demon Moon or a regular Demon Goon, feels like a hard-fought victory. And back when it was about fighting blood-sucking fiends with controlled breathing, JoJo threw both Caesar and Joseph down an 8-story pit and made them climb back out up a sheer, not just vertical, but overhanging, oil-coated stone pillar, barehanded. After which, yeah, you totally buy that they're ready for the Pillarmen now, which only makes it hurt harder when one of them isn't quite. And of course, that is the flip side of stacking the odds against your heroes by pitting them against such overwhelmingly monstrous foes. Yes, it makes every victory feel that much more triumphant, but it also increases the odds that they'll lose companions and the general rate of civilian casualties. These stories aren't afraid to hurt their heroes by taking their supporters and loved ones out of the picture, often with little warning, and as their stakes escalate, catastrophes resulting in mass death become increasingly common. Now, regular shonen battle series are no strangers to tragedies big or small, and those can hit really hard even when there's a chance of undoing them with the Dragon Balls or whatever. But a regular shonen hero's more likely to be given time to grieve or even say goodbye to a lost friend or mentor, and while the stakes for their battles may be just as high, they're a lot less likely to let their heroes fail and actually pull the trigger on an irreversible cataclysm, and then ask them to keep fighting in the aftermath. The consequences for mistakes in battle horror can be dire and desensitizing, highlighting the terrifying fragility of human life. Without spoiling either manga, both Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen readers will know exactly what I'm talking about. I have never been so shaken by a list. Those heavy consequences also allow these series to supernaturally empower their heroes, bypassing the training they'd normally need to take on these terrifying enemies without undermining their tension, because those powers can have deadly downsides. Eren's Titan shifting abilities are eyed with suspicion by the military when they're first revealed, and he initially struggles to control his transformation. While Nezuko is able to fight alongside Tanjiro without training, the danger that she might lose herself to her demon blood or be killed for it is a major driving force in Demon Slayer's early arcs. Through much of Parasite, even as they battle for their mutual survival against shape-shifting cannibals, Shinichi remains unsure if he can trust Migi, the cold, calculating alien killer living in his right hand. In Evangelion, the ever-present possibility that their mecha might go berserk and hurt them or loads of innocent people is just something the kids are expected to deal with. And in Tokyo Ghoul, which is a seinen series but has some very shonen vibes to it, all of the main characters have to eat bits of people to survive, which makes reconciling with humanity, a bit complicated. Jujutsu Kaisen leans into this trope hard right from the get-go. Yuji's always been physically tough, but he only gains the ability to fight curses by eating part of the mighty cursed spirit Sukuna. Sorta like the nine-tailed fox living inside Naruto, except way scarier, and they actually go through with those scary implications. And while he is apparently the only person on Earth who can actually hold that ancient evil at bay, Yuji's grip is shaky, and the consequences of losing it, even for a few moments, are straight up apocalyptic. In the few minutes that he was unconscious after the juvenile detention center fight, Sukuna almost killed his friend Megumi. And as you can probably guess from the Jujutsu sorcerer's eagerness to execute the young boy, the King of Curses is capable of much, much worse. Dipping into such dark places to build a power system also affords authors quite a bit of creative freedom in their battles, if they want to take advantage of it. For a typical shonen punch-em-up, you want a power system that's versatile, visually comprehensible, sensibly structured, and easy to understand. But comprehension isn't a requirement in horror and can even undermine its efficacy. While a lot of the series I've talked about today are content to simply make their action extra wet and chunky, a few take the opportunity to create mind-bending battles, literally and figuratively. While the Slayers in Demon Slayer have abilities mostly grounded in real swordplay, the demons are under no such restrictions. The lowest level blood demon arts can transform their bodies and create deadly weapons, but the first one we see creates a swamp-like pocket dimension under the ground. Tanjiro fights a guy who can redirect gravity not long after that, and one of the demons can create an entire infinite MC Escher castle by strumming a lute. Dorohedoro also seems to be doing some absolutely bonkers stuff with its take on magic, but I need to watch or maybe read more of that before I make any conclusive statements about it. JoJo, once it stops being about bloodsuckers and breathing techniques and starts being about psychic ghosts, is probably the most prominent example of this in action. Early on, stands mostly just do horrible things to the human body, but with each subsequent part, Araki's grip on the brakes gets looser and looser until people are altering laws of physics, folding up space like origami, slipping between couch cushions into parallel universes, and doing things to time that I can scarcely even describe. In the 8th part, half the characters are fighting with scrapped pitches for Junji Ito comics. It is wild. I really like this approach, personally, for two reasons. Firstly, it's a blast to watch talented artists and animators pull at the edges of reality with their pens, and it's fun trying to contort my brain around the non-Euclidean spaces they create. Manga, with its sequential but not linear format, is particularly well-suited to exploring such bizarre visual concepts. Secondly, these logic-defying, cosmically horrifying power systems, somewhat ironically, tend to pull shonen battle dynamics away from boring back-and-forth power level contests. JoJo tried to create power rankings for stands, and it somehow only made them more confusing, and toward more logical, strategic tests of wit. This is a big strong point for Jujutsu Kaisen, particularly as the manga goes on and domains become a more prominent fixture of combat. But even in the first few episodes, on top of the kick-ass martial arts choreography from God of High School director Song-Hoo Park, we've already seen some really promising stuff. Kugisaki's cursed nails function well enough as physical projectiles, but there are seemingly endless possibilities stemming from her ability to attack at long range with her straw doll technique. There's even more potential in Megumi's shadow puppet Shikigami technique, which at a base level is just a really cool way of depicting summoning powers, and could get way cooler if, as has been hinted, his ability to manipulate shadows extends beyond calling forth a handful of spooky Pokemon. And then there's Gojo with that whole "what you hit was the infinity between us" bit. Turning Zeno's paradox into a guy's basic defensive barrier is a hell of a creative flex. Every curse technique is unique to its user, kinda like a edgier take on stands. Jujutsu Kaisen is gonna give me a lot to work with for future animelays, and all of you a lot to enjoy as viewers. And that's likely the big contributing factor to the growing success of all these action horror titles. They're a lot of fun, a scary good time, if you will. It's fun to be spooked, it's fun to watch anime ass-kickings occur, and it's funner still to watch anime ass-kickers kick the asses of spooky things in spooky ways, and also get their asses kicked. But I think there's something deeper to this as well. Horror allows us to manifest and confront our fears and anxieties in a very literal way. Good monsters are never just monsters. Supernatural forces often represent and help us contextualize real-world problems. This has been true since ancient times, when our greatest worries were feral beasts and the capricious whims of nature, and it has stayed true through the centuries. Vampires embody the parasitic relationship between nobility and peasantry. Frankenstein and his monster, the wonderful, horrible power of science, and the dangers of narcissistic men trespassing in the realm of God. I've talked before at length about how the titular big hole in Maiden Abyss externalizes our all-consuming destructive curiosity toward all things unknown, including death itself, and how Subaru's ability to return by death in ReZero amplifies his unbearable loneliness. Shiki, one of my favorite works of horror, uses a vampire invasion to explore xenophobia in small-town Japan and show how such fear can make monsters of us all. The Promised Neverland explores the existential terror of realizing that systems you thought were there to help and guide you are really designed to commodify your life for easy consumption by those with more power. Which is, a little bit relevant right now. We're living through a scary period of history, under threat by natural forces of our own making that we're quickly losing control of, and increasingly ineffective social structures that more and more hurt us more than they help. Anxiety and depression are on the rise across the globe, and Japan specifically is fraught with all kinds of existential uncertainty, some of it contradictory. In that kind of environment, horror stories and horrific themes naturally become more relatable and appealing and have a better chance to thrive. And there's a particular appeal to this particular blend of genres. By infusing battle anime and manga, especially typically optimistic shonen stories with these horrific elements, we're able to fantasize about fighting back against those horrors. With nothing but a plucky shonen protag smile and unwavering trust in her friends, Emma is able to do the seemingly impossible and escape the monstrous system that was once her whole world, though that's just the start of a long, long journey. Jujutsu Kaisen's Yuji is cursed by the lingering animosity of a conflict centuries older than anyone alive remembers, and condemned to die by old men more concerned with maintaining their power than fixing shit because of it. But he can do something about that, with his fists, and maybe save other people from their own personal horrors in the process. Or maybe not. Tanjiro and Nezuko are cast out alone into a harsh and cruel world, ruled by abusive, controlling monsters, but survive and work to better it with the power of love. Love, and magic bloodfire, and cool swords. Not all of these titles are quite so optimistic. Devilman and Evangelion end on a, not-so-good note, and Chainsaw Man is a whole other video essay unto itself. Soon, I promise. A lot's changed very quickly since I last mentioned it, but even when efforts to save the world end in failure or instrumentality or whatever the hell is happening in Chainsaw Man right now, there's value in the effort itself, in the idea that the human spirit will push us to fight back even when everything seems impossibly grim and doom is all but certain. Even if we don't go the distance, doing some things we thought were impossible is still a win. We'll never conquer our fears by avoiding them, but we can face them, understand them, push back against them, and maybe even use some of the things we fear to our own advantage. These battle horror manga and anime balance hope against despair in a powerful, poignant way that I think is resonating with a lot of people, especially young people these days. We live in interesting times, and that is every bit the curse it always has been, but at least we're getting some equally interesting art out of the bargain. Speaking of bargains and art, once again this video was brought to you by Audible. I listen to audiobooks on Audible when I'm traveling, working out, and grinding in games, and I've found it especially useful in helping me drift off after a long day thanks to its sleep timer function. Lately, I've been enjoying recorded books, unabridged readings of The Lord of the Rings, letting Tolkien's poetic prose and the rich, wide-ranging voice of Robert Inglis paint vivid pictures of Middle-earth in my dreams. I'd highly recommend them regardless of your state of consciousness, and when you're done with those, which will take you a while, Inglis has also narrated The Hobbit and the first 3 books of the Earthsea cycle, which I've brought up a few times in recent videos because it is one of the best written, most character-rich epic fantasy series out there, and not nearly enough people are aware of its greatness. Ursula K. Le Guin deserves so much more love. But those are just my recommendations. If you'd like to discover some great new content for yourself, and you live in the US, Audible just rolled out their new Audible Plus plan, which grants unlimited access to the thousands of Audible originals, audiobooks, and podcasts in their Plus catalog, plus their new musical Words and Music series. Audible Plus lets you explore different formats and find new favorites without spending your precious monthly credits, and with their special holiday offer, now's the best time to try it. It's just $4.95 a month for your first 6 months, and only $7.95 a month after that. To sign up for your Audible membership and start listening today, visit audible.com/basement or text basement to 500-500. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite spooky fighting anime are and why, and before you click away from this to feed your VTuber habit, consider listening to our latest podcast where Yazzie and I discuss our own tumble down that particular rabbit hole. Or if you're looking to hear more about good anime fights, consider watching my recent breakdown of the 10 best battles in Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm Geoff Thew, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.